We're going to go ahead and continue to our next lesson where we're going to be learning how to graph rational functions. And you're going to learn today how to identify any holes in the graph or asymptotes for the graph. So first of all, these graphs that we're looking at, it is possible that there is a hole. So if we look at the top, here you can see the hole in the graph, and that occurs when x equals 3. There's a hole in the graph. Another possibility is that a rational graph has asymptotes. If you look at the bottom, this graph has a vertical asymptote right here when x is -2. And because it's a vertical line that the graph approaches but doesn't touch, since it's a vertical line, the equation is in the form x equals. Okay. The graph also has a horizontal asymptote right here at 1, and because that's an imaginary horizontal line, it's in the form y equals. Okay, so let's look at some equations and learn how to find the asymptotes and or holes. Oh, actually before we do that, some quick notes here, and you can follow along in your packet today. You're going to have some of the same notes on pages 22 and 23, summarizing the same things. So you could highlight or circle some of these. All right, a hole, we're going to be looking for factors that are on both the top and bottom of our fraction. To find a vertical asymptote, we're going to look for factors that are only in the denominator. For the horizontal asymptote, we're going to be comparing the degree of the top and bottom. And there's 3 cases. 1, if the top degree is larger, there is no horizontal asymptote. If the bottom degree is larger, there is a horizontal asymptote at 0. And if the degrees are the same on the top and bottom, then you're going to divide the leading coefficients to get the equation for the horizontal asymptote. Okay, so we'll go ahead and begin with number 1 on page 24. Okay, here we're looking for holes. So remember again, we're looking for factors that are on the top and bottom. Let's go ahead and factor the denominator, since the numerator doesn't factor. So we're going to use -3 and -1. They multiply to give us +3, add to give us -4. I don't see any factors that are on top and bottom. X plus 3 and x minus 3 are not exactly the same. So what that tells me is that this graph has no holes, since there are no factors on top and bottom. Number 2. Okay, number 2, it looks like cannot be factored. And looking here, there's nothing that can be found on top and bottom. So this graph does not have any holes either. So we will go on to number 3. We're going to start number 3 by factoring the numerator. It looks like we can use -4 and +1. And now I see x minus 4 is a factor of the numerator and denominator. So that is going to give us a hole in the graph. We're going to take that factor, set it equal to 0, and solve. So when we add 4 to both sides, the hole is when x equals 4. And again, because x minus 4 was on top and bottom, we have a hole. All right, let's continue on this page. The next 3, we're looking for vertical asymptotes that the graph may have, and those can be found when you have factors that are only on the bottom. So number 4 and number 5 are both already factored for us. Okay, I see both of these factors, x minus 2 and x minus 3, are only on the bottom. So we're going to have 2 vertical asymptotes. Set both of these equal to 0. and solve for x to find our vertical asymptotes. So by adding 2, we get x equals 2 for one of our asymptotes. Add 3, and the other vertical asymptote is x equals 3. Number 5. Okay, I notice x minus 2 is in top and bottom. So we'll go ahead and identify that as a hole. We set that equal to 0 and solve. There is going to be a hole in the graph when x equals 2. X plus 3 is a factor only on the bottom. So that is going to be a vertical asymptote on the graph. We'll set that equal to 0 and subtract 3. This graph will have a vertical asymptote at -3. Number 6, we're going to start by factoring. The numerator is the difference of squares. X plus 1 times x minus 1. Okay. Notice x plus 1 can be found on top and bottom. So remember, that's going to be a hole in the graph. So we will have a hole when x plus 1 equals 0, which is when x equals -1. That's the hole. And there are no factors that are only on the bottom, which means this graph does not have any vertical asymptotes, since there are no factors found only on the bottom.